something going on there, in other words, that's let's say, looking at the slide, maybe I should say that our theory is kind of not really pointing out to us. Now, what does this all mean? For me, there were a few issues of method which emerged out of this. One of them was that we really, in order to think about things in a material way, we have to try and move beyond our abstractions. One of the instruments, let's say, one of the ways of moving past our abstractions is perhaps to get involved with the idea of complexity. Now, complexity, and I've written a very long and involved paper about this. Complexity is a very, very interesting way of seeing things, and one of the most important points about it is that it's very, very concerned about the physical world and about the things or the phenomena, the events which really take place in the physical world. And you might say, well, this is what it's like in all science, isn't it? And a lot of people would agree with you that it's supposed to be like that. Unfortunately, a lot of our science is also, and all sorts of other ideas, are also dominated by the kind of theories which color them. And what's complexity, if you listen to somebody like Isabel Stengers was the partner of Ilya Prigogine, who's one of the most important complexity scientists, and she wrote books, by the way. He didn't. She says that what complexity science is about is not something not very strange, not very mysterious. It's about this very, very strong concern with what is empirical in the world and with real events that are taking place in the world. Now, the notion of technological complexity is actually a project which I'm busy on now, which is to try and develop ideas about complexity, seeing the complex world as being somehow connected to us. Okay, I'm sort of taking complexity and trying to make a complexity science of the human out of all of this. Now, in order to do that, we need to bring in technology. I can't explain the whole story here now, but we need to bring in technology, and we need to look at our relationship with nature. I've been looking at this mainly through three people up till now. One of them, Cronin, wrote a brilliant study on Chicago and on the way that Chicago changed the landscape around it. In other words, he's talking about how people actually construct in very, very material ways the environment around themselves. And he's saying in the 19th century, the landscape of the United States, the northern part of the United States, was really kind of changed fundamentally by the development, through urbanization, and especially through the urbanization of Chicago. And he kind of uses Chicago as a kind of a trope, if you like, to kind of spin the story about how we are human, we as humans actually construct the nature that we see around us. Another one is Mitchum, who is, maybe I shouldn't tell you all of these stories in too much detail. Mitchum is a philosopher. He's talking about the way that our standard kind of categories are not working for us anymore. Categories like technology, like science, like society, like science as well, that these things are not working for us anymore, that the world is actually much more complicated than that. And the other issue is place. The other issue that takes us beyond abstraction is the concept of place. This has been an interest of mine for a long time, and especially the way we talk about material settings. I'm just going to skim through these now because I just remembered I've got some more slides on these later on. The second issue of methodology is the nature and form of the city, where I'll talk about Weber and a few other people. and transformation as being the kind of foundation of urban development. Then material process being this kind of complexity issue, like getting really deeply and very intimately involved with the various orders. I think I've covered the first one mostly now. Mitchum, as I said, was from a philosophical point of view, talking about the way that our societies these days contain in them economics, contain in them science, that we can't kind of separate these domains anymore. They become so kind of interdependent that we've got this kind of relational, let's say, complex which has emerged out of them, which is quite different to the kind of categorizations that we've used in the past. So we can't really kind of understand things just as being simply economic anymore. That when we talk economics, we're always talking a whole lot of other things at the same time. Lefebvre has talked, of course, about the urban society, and is very interested in the notion, was very interested in the notion that the urban actually produces society. That's not society that's producing the urban, but that the urban might produce society. Again, that we're talking about like the way that the world itself, rather than our ideas of the world, might be the motivating factors. Place, again, if we look at place, most of the time when we think about place, we think about it in terms of three factors. And I've just taken a kind of standard view from John Agnew from a paper in 1987, where he said place is location on the one side, material setting on the other side, and subjectivity on the other. And I've just contrasted that to a view from Jeff Malpass, who's a phenomenologist, who says the social does not exist prior to place, nor is it given expression except in and through place. It is through the structure of place that the very possibility of the social arises. In other words, it's useless to talk about social construction of anything, or social construction of place, certainly, because you need place, therefore, the social to be a kind of viable concept in the first place. Secondly, this place is not founded on subjectivity, but rather on that which subjectivity is founded. The structure of subjectivity is given in and through the structure of place. Okay, so you see there twice Jeff Malpass has mentioned structure of place. And it's this idea which I'm trying to develop, the notion of the structure of place. Now, for me, it should be kind of quite a simple thing. We're talking about something that's material. We're talking about something that's all around us. We're not talking about very abstract ideas. We're talking about something which might be hidden or might not be easy to see, but it's certainly part of the world in which we exist. Okay, then the nature of the city. We sometimes kind of bring with us an idea of civitas, of a continuity through history, as a persistence of certain kinds of practices. Sometimes we talk about the Greek city and democratic practices, and we imagine that the city is this kind of ideal system. What I'm proposing is that it's nothing of the sort. The city is a succession of forms on the one hand, that there's been some incredibly strong discontinuities in the history of cities, that we're not talking about any kind of, grand line or grand narrative from the Greek city to today, or any kind of meaning which is associated with the city. That we're talking about abrupt changes at different points in time, and that the city has been many things. The city has been many different things.